you helped me. You told me probably October 13th, 14th, I'm going to shoot this deer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
10 hours. 10 hours.
Best laid plans.
You'll be done in 10 hours.
Yeah, you said that down there. We picked that tree out, and you're like, this is one of those spots, 10 hours, dead deer.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp. With the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
What were you asking? You wanted me to be bringing you beer?
I thought you would. Yeah, I thought you would had it. Like, you know, hard day of scouting. Your buddy come out, give you all that valuable info, and at least pay him with a.
It's 11 a.m. on a Thursday. But I mean, it is almost a weekend.
It's close.
It's your weekend.
It's turkey weekend, so I'm allowed to start. But really, I can't because I got to go find deer horns. So I'm glad you didn't. But you were probably thinking that you didn't want me to be drinking and going out and falling in the woods.
You said you had some stuff to do. You know, you wanted to wrap up around noon, so I wanted to make sure that I was respectful of your time and not being a bad influence.
Yeah.
And having beer at the truck for you.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
Yeah. You know, Joe drank it all last night.
I bet he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Justin, what would you say? So, or, you know, Johnny, so anyone listening here that's not watching the video podcast, so I'm here with, as you can probably hear, Johnny Stewart, and I got Justin Mueller back again. Mm-hmm. And so thanks guys for being here. But, you know, yesterday, we did a scouting video with my dad, and then the recap podcast. And it's the same thing with today that we're doing. We just had Johnny here. But Justin, I need to ask you first and foremost, who's the better asset, Joe or Johnny?
$1 million question right there. Well, I'd have to see him in the same area, right? Yesterday we had a lot more terrain. Today it was a little more flat. It's kind of interesting because it's like bringing the panel out. Everyone kind of looks at things a little different. You guys were all looking at the same areas and seeing like there could be a buck here because this or this. You know, Joe was looking a lot at looking for oak trees, looking for stuff like that. Today, Johnny was looking more for those real little micro terrain, that little depressions that'll pull the thermals in. Now, granted, if we'd have had Joe here or Johnny in the hills, it might have been a little different. But it's cool getting a lot of people who are successful deer hunters in their own way. There's a lot of things that apply that everyone uses, but everyone kind of has their own little things they look for. Johnny, you were looking a lot today. You like that that real little depression that, you know, if you weren't actually out looking for that, you'd walk right through it and not even realize it. But then when kind of you get down in there and you're like, this is going to pull all the thermals right down in here.
Especially when there's no terrain, just that little subtle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that was and I was joking about the who is better, but you had a good response, Justin.
I was keep it neutral.
Yeah, he did. He neutralized himself like a.
I know Joe listens to this podcast, so I don't want to talk too bad about him. He's not.
Oh,
here.
Does that mean you were going to say Johnny was?
Yeah, I understand.
No, it's two completely different areas, and that's kind of the goal. And I want to do more of these because I like this aspect. We went to the complete opposite yesterday. We went to a completely flat Big Woods area that I've mentioned on the podcast.
You said that was a place you had
Today
terrain.
Today we did.
Yeah. Oh, you said yesterday.
Yeah, sorry. Yesterday we went to a place to train. Today we went to a place that was flat Big Woods. I've talked about it before. I've hunted this area for 10 plus years on and off. I'm not always here hunting it every year, but I'm always running cameras and learning it. And it's a struggle outside of the rut to kind of figure out things. And Johnny's hunted a decent amount of flat Big Wood stuff, so wanted to get his opinion. There's no oaks, no mass crop. It's just like, you know, and yesterday at least when we did end up finding 2 oak trees, which I couldn't believe it. You know, Kenny had said there's, you know, no oaks in the area too, and I'd never seen them before. My dad found 2 mature oak trees. But here, I mean, we didn't even find, you know, apple trees, which I do know where there are some apple trees there. We were really dissecting a smaller area, but there's not a lot of there's no designated food basically. Makes it a little bit difficult.
Yeah, yesterday we found the oaks, and then there was laurel all over. Today was just, we were looking for mainly scrapes and beds and rubs, but it was a lot more focused on the sign that the deer were laying down and not what the area has to offer, if that makes sense. We were just kind of seeing how they were living in there and making a plan from there. Where yesterday, we found those oak trees and it's like, this could be our plan here now, where today we didn't have that.
Yeah. But the one thing I will say, like when we're, e-scouting this area and, you can e-scout this area and get yourself in the ballpark based off of not terrain, but vegetation, as far as a lot of vegetation edges. Johnny, you mentioned it multiple times today. There's a lot of stuff going on from the standpoint of vegetation in here. You have different ages of clear cuts that butt up against each other and some islands of, mature trees that go in between cuts, that sort of deal.
Yeah, you had that little pinch that you called it, or a seam that hasn't been cut, and you have them tops that have been recently cut. Then you have like the herbicide spray, and it's been maybe a shelter wood a few years ago. Then you got a kind of a swampy lower area we've seen some fire cherry, some thicker. So there was a diverse habitat for sure in there for deer and I always look at it like the deer utilize all those areas. Maybe more so than others. And then we got into that one spot back here near the road that I wanted to check that you said he could be in, and it was just a lot of beach brush or some cover. But, there should have been some trails or sign. We're in April, May, and there's no fresh growth, and there was no sign from this previous season, so... but the deer do kind of live like I go like this sometimes, but it's just like, it's not always... point A to point B in these flat graduates. They just meander.
There's browse all over the place.
Everywhere. So it's not like, and bedding is not, and always think about what your dad said. I don't know where they bed. And that comes back to me in an area like this. After I walk, I can kind of say he could be bedded in this area. We did find some beds, but it's not like this buck beds here and he's watching. I don't think there was enough foot traffic coming in to where he was seeing where people come in. It was pretty vast back in the area that we scouted to where they could, and there's a fair amount of cover. It's just, it's different than a area with terrain. So
yeah, and the way and so to give a little bit of a preface to the purpose of the scouting when we came out here was really, I was looking at one deer that I was hunting last year that. A really big deer that is big 9-point, and he was daylighting at this one scrape 3 different times in October right before dark, and then like probably 3 other times right after dark. And then I saw him in person October 30th and then never saw him again, which is weird because the year before that buck was all over in November in there, and I didn't have early October stuff, so it was really weird. But there was an older deer in there that we were talking about on the way out. I think it died of old age. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if he kind of moved in and made that his home, earlier on. And then he could have still been there in November, and I just wasn't picking him up on camera, or maybe my setups weren't exactly right. We'd fine-tuned some of my setups, and based off of the observations that I had, as far as they weren't, younger bucks were running some of the edge of these cuts, but it seemed like the older mature deer were sticking, deeper in that cover, and which makes it difficult for shot opportunities and being able to get in there. But that was the goal, is to try to find, it's like, okay, we have this deer on camera. What do we do? But what I've learned about this area from being here for so long, even if a buck dies, another one takes over and has similar tendencies. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can really get a lot of valuable information off of that.
Yeah, definitely your historical data intel from your cameras is definitely helping here in this area.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool too, because you mentioned you've been hunting this casually for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're still going into the spots and learning all about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's not like this is something you picked out last year. You've at least had cameras and had your eyes on this area for many years, and many different bucks coming in and living here. And now we're still going out now and identifying new spots. We picked out, don't want to get too far ahead, but we picked out a tree that you would potentially set up in to hunt that spot down there. So now this year and moving forward, now that you have a new stand location now.
No, and so I have killed 3 bucks in here since 2015, and it's the only area that I've killed multiple bucks in. All of my other ones have actually been across different counties in the state. Like I like going to different spots, but it's always been a place that's held good bucks that I just keep coming back to and keep doing it. And now, they were, well, 2 of them were during the rut, and then 1 of them was in gun season. And then I've also, this past year, this is where I hit the one in the shoulder. So I had that opportunity. When I had the opportunity to Hercules back in 2015, he was a 160 plus inch deer then. That was all like I've had good opportunities, but it's one of those places that I've just had to put a ridiculous amount of time, and I want to become more efficient with my time, like and getting better at different times of the year. Like I during the rut, I do feel pretty good about some of the spots I have and some of the places, and I showed you the one spot where I'd hunted out of a tree in that pinch, which we fine-tuned that spot a little bit by just moving up only 30 yards back where those hemlocks were. And so it's just when someone like us that we're in the woods all the time, and I've spent probably more days in this block of timber than I don't even know how many days I've spent in here and walking it, and I'm still learning so much every time that I'm in there, and it is changing. I mean, they're cutting things, they're changing the landscape. There's always so much to learn, and that's where I love having a different set of eyes. So if someone's out there and you're scouting an area and you're doing it, and you have a buddy, that it's good to have a different perspective to see how they see the woods.
Yeah, and you take yourself being in this area multiple trips, and you almost sometimes have too much information or too seeing deer here and there, and then you kind of get maybe clouded on maybe a clear of the picture because you have a lot of intel and information, and you put someone new in there, and it's like you just get a little bit of the cliff notes, and you're like, oh, here we go. This is probably your best bet just off of what I know, without dissecting the area, just with knowledge of deer and how they move and what's going on in the area. You can kind of help that person, like Beau did it with me here in my spot a month ago. I kind of was wondering, about the area, and he kind of just like, oh, right here and there. So it was like his take, someone else's take on it, and that without you having all this intel and all this data, it's just an overview of a good deer hunter.
Well, yeah, and you, like the spot that you took me into there about a month ago or whatever, it was funny because you took me in there based off something you heard me say at the scouting camp, talking about beaver ponds, and I was like, how much I love them, and I've spent a lot of time hunting around them, and you're like, oh, that buck I was hunting early season, there's a beaver pond nearby. Maybe he's laying down there and not doing the traditional the way that you think they're living. And you and I went in there, and in an hour and a half, we had some pretty, and light bulbs were going off for me. You gave me the information that you had, but I was seeing it from a different lens. And I was like, oh, I like that tree right there. I think you could get here. And based on him coming up and you, with me helping you there, I mean, that deer's dead first week October. You helped me. You told me probably October 13th, 14th, I'm going to shoot this deer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
10 hours. 10 hours.
Best laid plans.
You'll be done in 10 hours.
Yeah, you said that down there. We picked that tree out, and you're like, this is one of those spots, 10 hours, dead deer.
Yeah, 5 2-hour sits.
That's what he said.
5 2-hour sits.
Yeah.
You should be able to kill a deer.
But you had the information to back up that theory, right? Because it wasn't even like come in here and sit all day. You had the exact, like what the wind needed to be doing.
Yeah.
Needed to be calm, needed to be the afternoon, needed to be.
The stars got to be lined up and, or right in that zone to where it's like, okay, I got a good chance to see him. Got to be calm, got to be a thermal pull, and, right prior to the rut, when they're wanting to check right before, like I feel like, and you take these vast areas, and we walked up on the top, and it's just, and like I said, how the deer just meander. Okay, for a buck, knowing that the deer meander, he's not going to meander all through every inch of the forest. He's going to, where can I get the most intel from these animals? Okay, I know the sun drops, and it's going to get cool, and we looked at the lowest drain, which is only maybe a couple feet lower than the next drain down, but it's the lowest drain kind of going up into where the does are feeding. And, a buck's going to want to be efficient with his time, and that's how they live. And to check does, he's going to just wait till everything's aligned in his books to go in and check, and we're going to be there waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
No, and because you
Bo's
brought
going to look over. I'm going to be in the next tree.
well, you brought up there was a couple things. I want to lay this out to try to give a visual for people, and you will be able to see it in the video. I'm not sure exactly when the videos are going to be done, but thinking about so there's an inside corner of a cut, and there was a big scrape there. It's been there for years. I've ran a camera on it, and I was like, this buck's coming from the same direction every time that I have him on that camera, but really you're getting the view of what that camera is. He could have been coming up that drain, hitting that corner and spinning around, and could have been bedding, down in a different spot. And that's what you had brought up. You're like, to me, it just seems like, because we also walked these other areas and they just kind of looked dead. And it was like this spot, you're like, I could see him coming up this drain, and he's like, when are you getting the pictures? And it's like last few hours, last hour of daylight. It's like, yeah, everything gets calm and that scent starts to fall and just into those little drains and just kind of float its way down. And it's like, that spot's probably not a place in the middle of October that you're going to hunt at 2:00 in the afternoon. No. You're going to wait until that last couple hours, have to quietly get up into the tree and be able to catch him coming out. And there was an old clear cut that I believe that some bucks bed, and I have found some beds in there. I've found big rubs. I've found sheds. I've found everything that leads me to believe. And then even that camera that I had right by where you'd pick the setup, where I showed it in rifle season, there was a different buck, but it was a really nice deer. At noon, the first day of rifle season, he's running out of there. So it's like he was laying in there and someone probably spooked him and he squirted out his exit trail there, which we didn't mention that in the scouting video, but honestly, that's good intel if I had a gun tag to just go sit on that exit route and let people do the work, because that's his exit trail.
That's a gun season hunt. And then the scrape that you initially took us to, and it was relatively open area, and it didn't. And I think, looking at your intel, how you had them there early October, and there's nobody really hitting it hard. Your October 7th, 8th, 10th, and you're talking midday and stuff like that. Like, that's random times that he was hitting that. Was it?
No, he was
it evening?
Last hour.
Well, last hour, but I feel like as the season went on and pressure starts increasing, he just drops down lower into the thicker stuff. It looked, I looked at that scrape and I said, yeah, you could hunt it, but it's just so open.
And it didn't look that open before August of last year when the herbicide sprayed it.
Yeah.
When it was growed up around that corner there was just a logging trail, and then there was like thicker beach brush and stuff that was there before. And and that could have been a big
push them down lower into the...
Yeah, that's probably a big change from last year, where I had a lot of rut activity on that scrape and bucks chasing does around there doing all of that stuff. Like, that was something that was definitely a change that could cause them to be down lower in that drain a little bit.
That's a good spot. I really like it. I'll just watch when Beau's parked here, if he's not parked here.
No, Johnny, you're welcome. I still owe you, so you're welcome anytime to go hunt any of my areas.
Well, we talked about 2 access points. You two are each going to come in from different ways. We're going to bump into each other.
Yeah.
October 7th, you two are going to be standing by that same tree.
Hunting on either. We'll be in the same tree facing each other. Yeah. You shoot this way, I shoot that way.
Yeah. No, I really like that spot. So.
No, I could see the light bulb go off, because I could, Johnny, you wear your emotions on your face when you're looking and you're not super excited about something. It's easy to see, but there was 2 spots, and they were both drains like that.
Yep.
The other one was more of a rut type area where it's just on the other side of this clear cut. So it's just one clear cut, only 400 yards away, but there was another drain that was in between different clear cuts. There's a swamp on one corner of it. Just a lot of things happened. And I had shot a buck in that pinch before, but when we were standing there, I was talking about it. You're like, what's up underneath those hemlocks over there? You're just like, that looks good. We go up there. There's like 20 rubs.
Yeah, there's power rubs
underneath it. And we found a bed that was there that we're probably thinking was more of a rut type bed. He could see out a little bit and smell everything with the predominant. We looked at the historical wind on Spartan Forge. There was some westerly winds that are coming across, and the way everything just laid out perfect. Like, that's why that deer would be there. And I was like, and I have marked some doe bedding out in these other little fingers of hemlocks that go out into this cut. And we walk out there, and I'm like, the does. And Johnny's like, probably like right in those types of trees there. All right, we're back. We had some technical difficulties. I'm running my equipment off of batteries, and apparently only lasts for 19 minutes. So that's pretty terrible. But I had Amazon Basics alkalines that I threw in here, so we're gonna hope that this time it lasts a little bit longer. Do you hear like a little beat?
A little. Yeah,
there we go.
That's better.
All right, yeah. So we're gonna try this again. We can pick up where we left off. I do remember where we left off.
Good.
So we were talking about when you looked up in that ditch, the first ditch that we came to, but where you looked under the hemlocks, and we went up and we found all those rubs and everything, and then we jumped the does, and we jumped the does that were up there. And we were talking about, oh, this would be good doe bedding, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen them here before, and they just, I hit the remote and opened the gate.
Open the gates. There we go. Cue the does.
Yeah, and that was an example. We picked a tree there and looked at access. We looked at, we're like, all right, if we have a westerly wind coming across here, accessing from where we're parked right now is not the best way to do it, because you walk through there, looking at the map, it's like that's wind coming all the way across. I might be coming from the back, but it's that my access in is blowing over that way. So I'd have to come from a different hillside, come down up across, and then jump over, straight line it to the back of the tree and get up in there. And I thought that was a pretty good setup. And that was more of a rut type setup, because everything funneled down to that one spot. We went up a little bit further north and it widened out, and it was more where you get that meandering type travel movement, where there it was pinched down pretty tight. We have a fresh clear cut with a bunch of tops down deer don't want to walk through. Everything was right there. It's like, okay, that was a good spot.
Yeah, that was another solid area.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I did pick up a shed too.
Right in the hemlocks.
Yeah. Yeah, just out. We went out in the herbicide spray there, and I don't even know where.
It was an old one. I don't look for I just look for fresh ones. So I probably saw it and just.
I look for bigger ones.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So,
but it's cool you picked it up and brought it back. That's nice.
That was nice. Yeah, to
nice
bring it out.
It was a good buck. It had 5 on one side. Coyotes are chewing on it.
Is that your 5, maybe from a previous year?
Yeah, that's him.
That's him.
Yeah,
Pass him on.
There's no other 10 points here.
He's like before. He's like, there's all kind of 10 points here.
Good genetics for 10 points.
No, there's only one. Hey, you don't say that out loud. There's only one 10 point. Well, I guess is he a 9? I don't even remember what I'm hunting anymore.
No, if he looks like a shooter, shoot him.
That
yeah.
That herbicide sprayed on there.
Yeah.
Is that for you guys when you see that, is that a good thing, a bad thing? Does it not really matter? Do you play off that? Obviously, we did a little today.
No, really good question, because Johnny's the one to answer this.
Yeah, I look for those sprays, and what they do is kill everything. Usually they'll cut the pole timber, the undesirable birch and beech, and then spray that so it doesn't regenerate, but it also kills everything living on the ground. But you go a year, but ideally 2 years, and then the blackberry briars and the browse comes back. And so I'm always looking for that, especially if they go in and sometimes they'll take a few trees and leave the really healthy mature trees. They'll what they call the shelter wood cut, and they'll thin it out so light's coming in to help, and then they leave them pole timber, the birch and that, for the seedlings to grow, but it also allows your blackberry briars and your other browse to grow. So
sure.
They go in the herbicide spray. You got enough light, and then even talking to Kenny, you got the blackberry briars are a huge food source that I'm looking for through the summer, and the young ones that are just coming up out of the ground. So like 1 year in, it could be a good spot to check for that, but it's not always. I feel like and as Kenny said, if they were growing prior to the herbicide spray, then they would regenerate faster. Like it's going to kill for a year, then it's going to come back. But also you got to have a certain amount of daylight in there. But then just walking through, if you've seen a variety of stuff in blackberry briars, and that's definitely forage that they're going to key in on the summertime. Daylight is the key, and having the diverse plant life coming up through for them.
So that was actually cut 8 years ago, and the undergrowth was growing up pretty thick last year. And then all of a sudden, I get a picture on my camera of this giant machine going through there. And I was like, Kenny, what are they doing? He's like, is there a lot of beech growing up there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, they're spraying for it because basically when they opened up that canopy, they wanted the new growth to start generating before they take out the, the money trees out of there to make sure it regenerates good. And it just wasn't happening. All the junk was coming back up, and the deer don't even really like feeding on beech. And they like some of the maples. And what were some? I'm slipping my mind right now. That
tulip poplar,
yeah. Those type they like, and they don't feed a whole lot on cherry saplings, beech saplings, birch saplings, but oak, tulip poplar. And maple are ones that they will browse on. And then it's also, those are good trees to help, diversify the forest there and do that. So that's why they go through and they spray that. But, when I'd see them spray it, I'm like, oh, this sucks. But, Johnny has found last year, beginning of the season, you were having some of the best action I've ever seen of getting on big deer from herbicide sprays that were done a year or two before that, and now all of a sudden these blackberry briars, this new growth coming up, it's like creates a food plot for them.
And it was an area that had a lot of well roads, and the previous year or so they went in and did the select cut, and there was just brown because they did spray it, and the roads wound up along the south slope, and it just like, this sucks, which it did. It was brown, there was nothing. But then fast forward a year and a half or so, and now you have all this daylight coming into the south slope, and all these briars just, I'm like, light bulbs went off. And I got in there in August, September, started dropping cameras, and it was a high concentration of browse, and the deer, big bucks were in there, and like I said, that was a spot that I found initially just because of the herbicide spray, and I hunted and I kind of bumped the deer and didn't know the area well till we went in there here again in winter and found horn. Like they're going to be here next year, and now I know the area. We checked it. So intel's good, and going into a new area is tough. But do your best, because you're always kind of probing in a new area. You're not wanting to like rape it and go in do all you can to it, because you're also hunting it that year. So that's what we did after the season and went through it thoroughly, and them deer are still there. So that's your best scenario, that a deer made it through, and then you got the winter to scout it and plan for the following year.
I thought, well, like when we were down there, in my mind anyways, with that herbicide spray and everything, like now this year to me that creates a hard edge, right, of a spot where they're not going to be. And you can set up around it however you want. Well, now the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to be in there, but you still have.
He said they were in there somewhat last year.
They were, but not. More of kind of traveling through it, because they do have some hemlocks that they left up that created some cover and stuff, but they weren't really feeding in there. They did, like I did jump a buck bedded with a doe.
But yeah, it creates an area that they won't go to. But then fast forward a year or two, and
it'll be more of a destination.
And another area, a north slope that we had over, we're going to shed hunt today. The whole north slope was same thing, sprayed, brown, dead, all the way up the hollow. And we were catching this deer in this area, dropping down into that north slope right around daylight, big old buck. And I said, heck, he's not going up the hollow because it's dead brown. And so our chance was last year, I think, because I knew when he dropped over that he was staying here because they didn't herbicide spray this part of the north slope. But now fast forward this year, he could be browsing in that whole north slope somewhere. There wasn't a ton of cover, so it might take some time, but it's still, he has more of an option to feed there than this past year when it was just brown and it was like a no-brainer. He's not going in there at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the forests are always changing with the cuts, and I think it's looking at it from a different perspective. Like, Johnny said, sometimes you see that stuff, it's like, okay, maybe you got to take a year off here, or kind of, wait until things get a little better, or things are going to shift, and that's just that's the nature of it. The woods are ever changing, and this hunts differently than it did 10 years ago when I first started hunting it, and that's just how it happens. And there's some things that are the same, and there's a lot of things that are different.
Yeah, that's what always staying in the woods and hiking is going to learn and take note of everything that goes on. I've recently just told Justin about a set of horns I found that they kind of dropped all that beech in birch, like the pole timber that is undesirable when they come through, and it looked like a wall that you couldn't penetrate, and it kind of was in like a half moon type deal. And I parked here, this parking spot, and you just look like a wall of beech and birch brush just top on top of each other. And I got in around the backside, and there was an open area up in there, and there was some red pine and some blackberry briars, and I found horns, 3 horns in there.
Really?
Yeah, because it was me and Rendell actually hiked an area over here, and we got 200 yards from them horns because we were walking over them beech and birch. They were like this on top of each other, and like, man, a deer's not even going to walk through, and we're like trying to get over it. It just sucks, and we get out, but it just so happened that, I got into a seam or a little area that didn't have a lot of the beech and birch for them to cut in that area for whatever reason, but the outskirts did. Maybe it was near the road in the daylight and that, but it was pretty wild to, like, don't just look at that, like, really dissect your areas, man. Walk around the edges of them. There might be a little trail leading in, and you open up to a green patch or something where, and everybody's walking. So I feel like we're going to check that spot later this year. I feel like, man, this is, creating that wall of brush, 2 to 3, 4-inch diameter beech and birch just laying on top, the undesirables, and it looks like you can't get in there, but we just snuck around the back, and I'm like, man, this is going to be and the same thing, there's a little low drain coming right up into there, some hemlocks. I'm like, and that's where them horns were laying right there, and he was living up in there, and nobody's, you got to really, like, man, go over it with a fine-tooth comb, like, put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Like, these deer are living out there on 247, and they're finding these little nooks and these little seams and stuff that you're just glazing over when you got a couple days of scouting here and there. But if you can just keep, like you said, you got 10 years and you're still learning, man. Let's go down in this spot. Maybe there's something we miss, and boom, there it is. So, being out there and dissecting that area, checking around, knowing that the daylight's going to come in somehow and provide food, and so it's pretty exciting and keeps you always thinking, using your brain to figure out where they are and how they're navigating, and as years change, you got to change with them.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it on the podcast with my dad, but I can't overstate it, of going back and looking at your maps after you scout or hunt an area, because things start making more sense. You may have dropped a pin here because you saw something, you found a scrape here, found a rub here, you found this, and maybe at that time it's not making sense. And then as you learn more, and then you go back at it and you found some more intel, and then you're like, oh, this makes sense why this is over here.
Yeah.
He could be traveling along this edge or moving in this way. And that's why I want to do these videos so much, because everything lays out so differently, in every area. There's tendencies that you can pick up on that translate from area to area, but every spot has its own little intricacies, like you were just talking about there with finding those antlers in that spot and the way the drain laid out. And it's like, that's something you don't know until you get the boots on the ground and you do it over and over and over again and start to be able to recognize it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Are you going to be going out? I know you're going out turkey hunting on Saturday. Are you doing much turkey hunting, or are you doing more scouting?
I usually get a couple hours in a turkey hunting in the morning. Then my wheels start turning and thinking about deer. So, yeah, I'll get out for sure.
If you don't shoot one right off the roost, it's whitetail scouting.
Yeah. I give them an hour or so. They got an hour or so. Then I start looking for deer. That's all they got.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And you think Bill's going to make it?
Bill's coming. He is coming, boy.
Bill's coming?
We're going to go
Bill Thompson, Spartan Forces.
He needs to borrow pants, boots, a gun. But he'll be here to hunt.
Yeah, that's that'll be traditional Bill fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a big party was what we're having.
Yeah, you're having a party at your camp for opening day of turkey after we're done hunting afternoon there. Gunner's going to be cooking up some deer meat that we're all, donating to the cause, and
maybe turkey too.
Maybe some turkey.
That's cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a really good time. But I don't know if you saw Kurt's text. If your hot tub's not up and running, we're going to find our own place.
It'll be running. supposed to rain, though. Maybe thunder, lightning. We'll see who's going to get in it.
It won't be working yet.
It'll be full. I'm filling it up today.
Are you?
Oh, yeah. You know it.
You got a lot to do yet today. Go find some sheds.
Oh, I know. You get 3 or 4 days to go up to turkey camp, and you got to cut the grass. I want to do this, that. Go scout. It's like, yeah, you can. So you end up just cracking a beer.
Think about all the things you got to do.
I should do.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep this one short and sweet. Kind of just wanted to recap, our day and getting out there and scouting. And I'm trying to think, we scouted. It was only a little over 3 hours. It wasn't that long, but we got a lot done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot done. I'll see how many miles that we.
I think it was 1.5, a little over, almost 1 3/4.
We did 3.43 miles.
I was close. You serious? Mine said like 1.5.
No,
maybe I was halfway through.
Yeah, that's 3.43 miles. So we covered some good ground and really just swept back and through the areas and working through it, and it's just another piece of the puzzle, and it's just a continuous 365 thing. It's of continually learning these spots and doing it, and as we talked about yesterday, it's like, oh, we found some really good spots yesterday. It's like, oh, definitely think you can kill a buck here, but there's so many times things go haywire. That's why you got to have backup plans.
Mm-hmm. And with that spot, with these deer just roaming through the forest, you got to get a consistent thermal pull that the deer are going to use. And utilize that. Otherwise, these deer are just roaming, and the wind's everywhere. And just use everything to your advantage in an area that's vast like this, with a nomadic tendency and browse everywhere.
Yeah, the thing that I like too is yesterday we did like 5 or 6 miles.
Yeah, 5.5 miles.
And then today 3. So not saying Joe's a better scouter, but he definitely works harder. Doubled up.
He needs that many miles to figure it out. I figured out in less, more efficient.
More efficient.
I don't need to walk at 5-6 miles. I can really read my maps and get you down to that 2-3 mile and put you, So then I get 2 miles and I'm on to another 2 mile section. And he's still on the first 5.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing that I liked is our 3 miles happened in 100 acres.
It did. It
200. Once we got to our spot, it's not like we were just running all over. We were going back and forth and in and out the whole.
And this was a spot Beau already had that it wasn't like trying to find sign and find a spot and moving, beeline and going. It was already an area that we wanted to dissect. So it's kind of different than just a total new area from It was new to me, but old to you, so we did just go into this area, but there are times when you are putting a lot of miles on to nope, this ain't it and this ain't it, and I talk about having a diverse habitat or terrain or whatever, and then maybe working out from there. So that's always but it's not always that's just because you see it on a map doesn't mean it's great. You got to put some time in.
Yep. Well, the batteries are going to die in less than 60 seconds, so if you want to follow Justin along, Justin Mueller Photography over on Instagram and at the Johnny Stewart. When are your hunting videos coming out, Johnny?
I'm thinking maybe July.
Okay.
We've been working on editing them.
Oh, you've been.
Oh, fuck! We haven't waited.
So you'll have a YouTube channel there, and whenever he gets that up and running, I'll be sure to share it with everybody. Been getting a lot of questions about that. Yeah. So, but all right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.